Hello and welcome to the Upside Down Life. My name is Evan, and I make these videos to be a blessing to you in your walk with the Lord. Yeah, just had to mute my phone real quick. Sorry about that. So in today's video, we're going to do something different. We're going to go through a Bible story. Main reason being is, first off, I think the stories in the Bible are great ways to teach. And by that I mean, like in the New Testament, there are stories, but it's a lot more talking kind of pointedly at how we should be living and other things. But I find in the Old Testament, we kind of find where these principles, we see them on display. Perfect example would be, even though we don't get the law until Leviticus that says you shall not murder, there's still a consequence for it in Genesis. So I'm just saying, I enjoy reading the stories. And today, the one we're going to go through, we're going to do a lot of these, but this one is just wild. I think it's a great place to start. It's Judges 19, 20, and 21. So that's the last last three chapters of the book of Judges. And what's going on here is 11 of the tribes of Israel are out to destroy one tribe of Israel. Before we get into this, I just want to describe to you real quick like what the tribes of Israel are. And if you know what they are, I mean, you could jump forward or you can just listen for a second. It doesn't really matter. The tribes of Israel come from these three men that we know as the patriarchs, specifically one known as Jacob or Israel. But his grandfather was a man named Abram, who was called out from his family into a land called Canaan. And he had a son named Isaac. You might remember a story of a man named Abraham going to kill his son. Isaac was that son. He had another son named Ishmael with his wife's servant named Hagar. His son Isaac went on to have two sons, and there's some, like, all the story in their lives are like, we're going to do them too, don't get me wrong. But Isaac has two sons, Esau and Jacob. We come to Jacob, who has his name changed by striving and like seeking the Lord. He has his name changed to Israel. He has two wives. They're sisters, as a matter of fact, and he ends up having 13 children. And so you're wondering, how does he have 12 tribes if there's 13 children? One of those children was a daughter named Dinah. And some of the sons that we're going to talk about in this are Levi, which would have the tribe of the Levites. Benjamin, who has the Benjaminites. And you might know Benjamin because there was this guy named Joseph with a Technicolor Dreamcoat. His brothers tried to kill him. I actually think it was Benjamin was the one who actually kept them from actually physically killing him and just selling him into slavery. But Benjamin is Joseph's younger brother and Rachel's youngest son. His name means son of my pain or son of the south. One reason might mean is because he was born in Canaan. The other one is possibly because Rachel died either giving birth or shortly after him. So a lot of the names from these men, especially in the Old Testament, was really based on like physically how your birth went, how your pregnancy went, and so on. So getting into this story, so why did 11 tribes want to destroy one tribe? And that's really where Judges 19 picks up. So what happens is there's a man who is a Levite. So all the tribes of Israel were given land by Moses in, I want to say it was Numbers, but I could be wrong. But they're given land in the book of Joshua when they go in and take Canaan, the land where Abraham was promised way back in the day. Moses already split up the land, and so the Levites were not given land because they were the priests. So they lived amongst the cities with other people to carry on the religious rites and traditions so that people could help follow them and things like that. So a Levite had a wife. She was it says a concubine, but understand concubines at the time were wives who didn't bring a dowry, meaning that they didn't bring a financial gift into the marriage. So it limited some of their rights and things like that, but it did not mean that they were not a wife. It wasn't so much a slave. But anyway, so he has a concubine, and his concubine ends up being unfaithful to him. And I'm not sure if that means cheating or what, but she goes and lives with her dad for about 4 months. And this is what he does. He says, I'm gonna go get her back. Remember, this is the backstory. He goes to her dad's house and to get her back, and he ends up staying there. So I think that the relationship really had a good turn. And the reason I say is because, like, before this last time, there's 2 times that he tried to leave, and the dad is like, man, just stay, please, just stay and enjoy yourself. And on the day he ends up leaving late in the afternoon. Like right now, I live in the Midwest. It's 9:30 in the morning. The sun's about to start to go down in like 3 hours. So like it could have been wintertime and it could have been really early, or it could have been, later in the day. But the point was the day was waning away and there really wasn't a lot of time to travel. Remember, they didn't have cars, things like that. They might have been on foot, might have been on donkey, but it definitely probably wasn't a high speed affair that was going on. So as he's traveling, he has a choice. He can go to a city that's not in their territory so much. He decides to go towards a place called Gibeah. Gibeah is in the tribe of Benjamin's land. Remember, we talked about Moses giving them land. The city of Gibeah falls in his land. As he gets close to Gibeah, he could have went to a place called Ramah, but he didn't. He went to Gibeah. He goes to Gibeah. Nobody wants to help him. An old man welcomes him to his house. The whole city comes and starts beating on the door saying, give us that man. Not his one, because remember, he's with his servant and his concubine and probably other people. They say, give us that man. We want to have sex with him. I'm telling you, these stories, you'll have your mind blown when you read these stories and see what was going on and what people were going through and dealing with, and it'll definitely give you some strength to go through things in your life now. But anyway, and this is a direct relation to what happened with Lot and the angels back in Genesis. I'll put the chapter on the screen. You should go read it too. So what happens is he says, instead of taking the man, would you take his concubine? So they take the concubine, and I'm just going to put it like the way the Bible put it, like they violated her all night long. Remember, this is all the men of the city. And they leave her on the front step, like the door, right in front of the door, where the placemat would be or whatever. And when he wakes up in the morning, he tries to wake her up and there's no response. In short, what it's saying is she's dead. And he puts her on the donkey, takes her home, cuts her into 12 pieces, sends her pieces to the 12 tribes of Israel and says, what are you going to do about this? So now we get into the 11 tribes wanting to kill the one. I'm sorry it took so long, but that's just the backstory. So what happens is the 11 tribes of Israel that are not Benjamin, they get together and say, man, we have to do something about this. They amass an army of 400,000 men. And they say, Benjamin, listen, just give us the people that are in Gibeah, and you know what? It'll be cool. Like, there just needs to be some sort of recompense for this shame. It's not that we don't love you, but we just need to deal with this. And Benjamin's answer is negative, Ghost Rider. We're not gonna do it. In fact, what they do is they go and they get an army, and that's actually what I'm looking at right now. I just wanted to get the numbers accurate. All right, so out of all the tribe of Benjamin, they got 26,000 men. 700 of them are great warriors. And I mention that for a reason, because at the end of this video, we're going to talk about some things that would have been lost had Benjamin been destroyed. And one thing that I'm just going to point out to you quick, there were blessings given by Moses and Israel to the tribes of Israel. And one of the blessings from Abraham on Benjamin was that he would be a ravenous wolf. He would be consuming all the time. The blessing of Moses was that he would rest between the shoulders and he would be safe. And the resting between the shoulders is because the land of Benjamin, I'll put a map up, it sits between the tribes of Ephraim and Judah. And when you actually study it out, they are the leaders of Israel by like birthright and some other stuff like that. But also it talks about the ravenous wolf. And so what some people say is that part of the temple that like Solomon built would have actually sat on Benjamin's land. And so like the ravenous part was, you got to remember, every day there were sacrifices. Of course, we talk about like this big sacrifice going into Holy of the Holies before Christ died. But there was also the daily sacrifices. That's why reading Leviticus and the law is good to understand like how, like, and it says it was ravenous. It was always consuming things. So just to talk about that. So they're all meeting outside of the city of Gibeah for war. And Benjamin's like, no, we're not going to do it because they are warriors. There was one of the judges earlier in the book of Judges. I want to say it was Ehud or Elihud. I probably completely messed it up. But the interesting thing about him was that he was left-handed, and he did something really cool because he was left-handed that he wouldn't have been able to do if he was right-handed. And that's what it says about these men from Benjamin. 700 of them were left-handed, and they were so good at war that, excuse me, that they could throw a stone and they would never miss a hair. Meaning a rabbit or something like that. So they go to war, and they end up meeting a couple times. The first time they meet, Benjamin comes out and kills 22,000 of the 400,000 that Israel brought, and they barely had any losses. So Israel goes home, and they seek the Lord, and he says, go up against them. And the next time, I'm not saying it's the next day, but the next time they go up against them, boom, 18,000 men died, right? So off jump, that's 40,000 men in 2 engagements. I mean, that's 10%, right, of how many people they brought that they've lost. So now they have the high priest there, and they're like, yo, we really need you to seek the Lord, because we asked him and we're not sure if we got the right answer, so we need you to seek the Lord. And he says, go up a 3rd time and I'll deliver them into your hands. So what happens this last time is Israel goes out and Benjamin comes out and they start to fight, and Benjamin is pushing them back again, and Benjamin's like, man, it's another day like other days. We're out here, we're doing our thing, we'll kill him a little bit, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna head home and everything will be good. But little did they know, what Israel did this time was they put men outside of the city in ambush. So when all the troops, right, so it's about 26,000 men of Gibeon, Benjamin, excuse me, and they're going after Israel. When they're away from the city, these other troops, boom, they go in. And this is what it says: the men in ambush moved out and struck all the city with the edge of the sword, which for me means they killed everybody. And it not only would it have been the city of Gibeah, all of Benjamin would have been there, because all these men would have amassed, and they probably wouldn't have just come alone. I mean, not saying they would have brought their whole families, but it would have been more people there than normal. And so now not only did the whole city get slaughtered, now we got 26,000 men that are out here just kind of, what's going on, you know what I'm saying? They're trying to go, they actually try to go back and help the city, but they can't, because as they turn to go back to the city, remember, there's, I mean, at least probably 300,000 men, maybe 200,000 men that are behind them. They were beating them, but now with your back turned towards them, it's hard to fight. So they run after them, they overtake them. So all these men get killed except for 600 men. And these 600 men make it to a place called the Rock of Rimmon, I don't know. But anyway, they make it there. And that's really the wrapping up of Judges chapter 20. And getting into 21, it seems like there's been a break in the hostilities for a second. Because we kind of join the congregation of the 11 tribes of Israel. And it starts out with them making a vow that we will not give our daughters to Benjamin for marriage. And what this shows me is like they were really trying to destroy Benjamin. It wasn't just with the sword, but they were saying even if somebody survives, it will bring a curse upon any one of the Hebrew people that gives their child to Benjamin, that they would be able to further what's going on. And it's crazy they do this, and then literally not 2 verses later they say, "Oh Lord, why has it come to this, that one of your tribes, that one of the tribes of Israel will be so destitute, so outcast, so in such a bad place?" So this is what they do, and this is what I'm telling you, these stories are so wild. So they're having a congregation. Imagine like your school having a convocation. I'm just giving you an example. I don't think schools would kill people, but anyway. So they're trying to figure out a way to weasel out of the vow that they made to God. And I say the weasel out of because I forgot to tell you how this story started. It starts with a statement that says there was no king in Israel, and each man did what was right in his own eyes. So what they did was they said, well, what class didn't come to the convocation? Who's not here with the congregation of Israel that said they would be here? And it turned out a little group named Jabesh Gilead had not shown up. And so Israel, in their wisdom, like, remember it says, like, be slow to make vows. And here's a great example why. So what they do is, remember now, there's 600 people left in the tribe of Benjamin at the time. And they're hiding in the Rock of Rimmon. Everything else has been destroyed. Everyone else, animals, everything, cities, things like that. So Jabesh Gilead didn't come to the congregation. So Israel says, we're going to send 12,000 of our best soldiers there. And we're going to kill, not everybody, we're going to kill all the men. Regardless, we're killing every man. And then we're killing the women who have known a man. Biblically, that means to have had sex. But we're going to keep the virgins. So they go and they kill people who were there helping them, but they're just not at this convocation, which is really such a wild premise and thought. Like, I don't think that's of the Lord at all. And they kill them and they take the virgins that they have, and guess what? There's only 400, but there's 600 men in the Rock of Rimmon. And it's crazy how hard Israel's fighting for these people that they were trying to kill the other day, when they could have done all this without making all these vows. So what they do next is, because there's still 200 people that need to have, that would need a wife. In Shiloh, there's a festival that happens. And during this festival, I'm assuming it's the virgins. It says the women go out and dance. But what they say is, have the 200 men of Benjamin go hide and wait in the trees where these women come out and dance during this festival. And when they come out, go and grab them. Go take them. Go take one of their daughters and just, like, really just claim her as your wife. Oh, man, that's even difficult to just say out loud. This is what Israel said, we will tell the people of Shiloh when you do this. Grant them graciously to us, because we did not take each man of them his wife in battle, neither did you give them to them, else you would now be guilty. That is so man, that is what it's saying is this. Listen, you made a vow with us and you didn't give your daughters to them, but also we didn't have to come take them. We still got roughly 350,000, 300,000 men, and we could have come taken these 200 women. And after that, the men of Benjamin go, they take the daughters, and everybody goes back home. And that is the end of the book of Judges. And it ends with the same statement it started with, and I want to just read it this time. It says, in those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. Like I said, I love these stories because there's such meaning in them. And like for me right now in my life, like there's such meaning in the fact of like family is family. And of course, Christ expounds upon this by saying like, who is my family? Those who do the work of the Lord. But he never discounts the fact that like his mom and his brothers are his family. Like even though he's in this body of believers, he's loving the Lord. It doesn't mean he can dishonor his mom or his parents, right? There's still that there. And so like with everything else, Christ says you can't do this, or before it said you can't do it, now Christ says you're not supposed to even think it or have it in your heart. Now he's saying not only is your family like the people that share your blood, but it's also the people who share your love for Christ. So I almost forgot to talk about this part. What would have come out of the destruction of Benjamin? So first off, Israel doesn't get his first king, right? Saul comes from the tribe of Benjamin. Esther would not be here. Mordecai was from the tribe of Benjamin. He was Esther's uncle or cousin. I forget, different ones say it different ways. Assuming his brother or whoever he's related to is the same bloodline, they would have been from the tribe of Benjamin, and they would never have existed. In turn, Haman would have destroyed the Hebrew people. There's just some things that would have happened there, right? And then finally, one of the most spoken of people in the New Testament is, he carries the namesake of the first king of Israel, Saul, whose name was changed to Paul. Proudly boasts that he is of the tribe of Benjamin. So what's the point here? That people are going to make mistakes. Can't argue that. But what I can say is that you never know what's going to come out of that person in the future. I spoke about Abraham and Moses giving blessings to the tribes. Well, the truth is they didn't bless every tribe. They cursed some tribes, actually. You should go read what he says about Levi. And then you should go read Malachi, I think chapter 2, and see what God says about Levi. I'm not saying that man doesn't make mistakes, but through repentance, like we have an opportunity to change everything, to become a completely new person. And of course, in this story, it's the lineage, it's the people that are later on. But that's the beauty of what Christ did for us, is that he actually makes it possible for us to do the right thing. And not only to do the right thing, but for our mind to see that we're doing the wrong thing and turn and start to do the right thing. I was reading in 1 Timothy this morning, and that's what he's saying. Like God, or like Christ came to redeem sinners, to make there be a way that you can stop doing wrong and start to do right. And if you go around killing everybody and destroying everybody, it's like the saying says, an eye for an eye will end up with a blind world. Or a world with no wives. So I love you guys, and I'll see you next time. I really hope you enjoyed this. I really enjoyed doing it. So yeah, I'll see you next time.